Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm from the Solutions Architect team at Support Logic, and I'll be your host today. We're excited to bring the topic of intelligent support experience using Support Logic Data Cloud for our webinar today. The agenda for today covers the following topics that you're seeing on the screen. Now, first is what do we actually mean by Support Logic Data Cloud? What do we even refer to as the system of intelligence, right? And we'll go through some of the methods and possibilities of how you can consume and integrate Support Logic Data Cloud within your own systems or any means of data consumption that you have. We'll also tackle some of the most complex and technical hurdles that we have overcome so that you won't have to, or some of the technical hurdles that you will face if you are not utilizing Data Cloud, for example. And lastly, we'll also go into some of the use cases, the strategic use cases some of our customers have used and have come out on top, and many other use cases that could potentially be applied that's just waiting for you to start the spark. And lastly, we'll have some Q&A at the end if time permits. With that said, let's just get started. Right. The first topic is actually, I would like to start with providing some understanding or some more details on some of the common problems that we face in our industry. In most organizations, if you look at it, the CRM has been the undisputed system of record, tracking every ticket, comment, their changes, the timestamp, all of it, right? If you look at it that way, the CRMs are often considered data rich, but insight poor, because they actually capture what happened, like a ticket being opened or closed, increase in severity, new updates on the tickets, and so on, right? But they rarely explain why it happens or what is likely to happen next. Like, why was a case moved up in urgency? Why did a case get escalated? Right? These are not insights that CRMs are providing, at least at the moment. And this is a structural limitation that keeps the support organization in a perpetual state of catching up to customer dissatisfaction. Like, we aren't getting ahead of it, right? Like, we are being reactive to everything that's happening to us. And it actually doesn't just stop there. The problem also extends when the actual voice of the customer gets siloed within the teams, right? The actual need or voice of the customer at an organizational level is often stuck within different teams. Like, only customer-facing teams get to know the reality of the needs in real time. And it takes a lot of effort or time, and sometimes even escalations for it to actually reach the leadership or even different parts of the organization for these insights to get to them. Right? So to combat this, what forward-thinking organizations are doing is they're moving towards a data-driven system of intelligence model, right? Like, by integrating Support Logic Data Cloud, many companies are actually breaking down the silos that keeps the voice of the customer siloed within their specific teams and getting it to their larger organizations. They're actually converting the data that we have that's siloed in the system of records into predictive intelligence that's easily accessible across the organization, and so that they can never miss a marker that could impact or increase their revenue. That's all, right? It either marks or increases their revenue. Now, with this in the know-how, right? We all know these are the common problems that we are facing. So what can we do to overcome them? What are what options are there to overcome them? And to look at it, we'll first go into a brief of what Support Logic Data Cloud is, right? And then we'll move from there, right? I would like to clarify upfront that Support Logic Data Cloud is actually not just another reporting dashboard or just a data silo. Again, it is the empowerment of system of intelligence is what we would say. It can be the backbone of all your operations and AI transformation that's happening right now at every single organization. Support Logic can be considered as like an enterprise grade data layer. So that sits strategically between Support Logic's backend and your desired form of consumption. Like, the desired form of consumption could be anything. It could be your own data warehouse, data lake, BI tools, or any other form of consumption. And This sits in the layer of data cloud. We are utilizing Snowflake and powered by Snowflake at this point so that it ensures real time that whatever data that we can convert into intelligence is never bottlenecked, right? So that it reaches you at the appropriate time as and when we need it, right? Now, what data actually sits in support logic data cloud? Like we know it's a layer between support logic's backend and what you want to consume. So what exactly is in support logic data cloud? Like the heart of data cloud is actually enriched data that is from your CRM actually, right? So whatever support logic process is from your CRM, is from your system of records, right? Like your every data from every interaction that you have on case, comments, emails, chat transcripts, voice transcripts, everything that goes through support logic is enriched by our own agents or AI agents. And we have four such major agents that takes care of these things. And then they are pushed into support logic data cloud, right? We'll look at all these agents as well right now. First is the sentiment agent, which uses fine-grained analysis to tell you how customer feels without you having to read through each and every single case, right? Like it gives you the direct signals that are not explicitly visible when skimming through a case. So we point out what exactly a sentiment is detected on a particular case or a comment. There is also the summarization agent, which is where the GenAI comes into play, right? Like the summarization agent employs generative AI to maintain context across complex case histories. So it goes through the entire history of the case and it summarizes them into actionable points so that you can take the possible next steps and what you can do about it. And it basically summarizes the entire case using GenAI. We also have the account health agent, which is it provides a longitudinal view of customer experience by combining several insights, not just one or two factors, but even the other sentiment agents, summarization agent and prioritization agent, right? Like it even takes input from all of them to actually combine them into an account level view. And finally, we also have the prioritization agent, which uses scores to reflect the objective urgency and health of every case. It's very difficult to quantify in the terms of sentiment about what a case represents or what an account represents. Our prioritization agent does that, right? Like it calculates or quantifies sentiment into a number and so that it stack ranks those cases for you and will give it to you at the end as a prioritized list. And the best part about this is after you use prioritization agent, your team can entirely focus on what matters the most rather than just focusing on the loudest customer, right? And that's what happens, or that's what our support teams end up doing most of the time. We try focusing on the loudest customer rather than what matters the most. Now, we have all this data in support logic data cloud, right? This is where the tool comes into play and Snowflake comes into play. Now, all of these enriched insights together empower the data cloud ecosystem. How are we going to leverage and utilize it? And that takes us to the next slide on how we are going to actually integrate this with our data or with your data. All right. First, we have it's designed for flexibility, our data cloud, so that we provide it in three different delivery tiers, I would say. You can think of it as options or delivery tier, you like it. The first or the most recommended option is Snowflake to Snowflake zero copy secure share, through which you can actually, if two different let's say Snowflake instances are there, support logic Snowflake instance and your enterprise Snowflake instance. We can just share between both of them directly through Snowflake metadata store. And that's going to happen real time with zero ETLs and so on. So that's going to be the most preferred option. The second is cloud storage exports, right? Again, if you have any sort of a cloud storage export, we can provide scheduled, let's say, exporting of such data to your own cloud storage. And you can pick up the data from there and then utilize it. And lastly, if you are using any BI tool at all or any data lake, you can directly access through programmatic tokens that we will provide you, right? And the subset of this is programmatic access tokens, which I must say is a stroke of genius from Snowflake, which means if you want to build programmatically, like access these things or if you have a, let's say, a person with development capability ready, they can easily access this with programmatic access tokens. You can separately build an API layer on top of Snowflake and consume data from there to any desired form. You can even build your own applications from there, right? Now, let's deep dive into each of these options, or what are the integration options that are available. Option A being the Snowflake to Snowflake zero copy secure sharing. All right. Now, this is a zero ETL approach, and it is the most efficient way, as the data remains within the Snowflake's perimeter. Like it, because it sits within Snowflake itself and doesn't move out, it's always subject to governance and compliance policies, and it can be configurable to near real time. There is no need for additional effort on anyone's end, right? There will be no custom Python scripts needed. There will be no Airflow DAGs needed for setting this up. It's a sort of a plug and play option. All we'll need to do is we'll create a listing, and you'll have to provide us with your own account identifier, and we'll share it with your account. And it's only accessible by your account directly through the Snowflake's metadata store, right? This is option A. Now, for those who are not on Snowflake, option B actually offers automated scheduled exports to your preferred cloud storage services, whichever ones that you may use. Like you could use GCS or S3 or Azure Blob, any of such cloud storage mechanisms. And we provide you the data in optimized formats like a Parquet file or CSV, or even in compressed format, right? And the best part is we'll also provide you with the detailed schema of all the tables and reports, so that you don't have to worry about what exactly each of these reports contain or each of these tables contain. Now, option C again is the direct BE tool access, or a data lake, or a programmatic access, right? Like we provide you with, again, a programmatic access token with which you can directly connect your BI tool to our, let's say, data cloud, so that you won't have to actually do any changes, right? You can leverage and use the transformations that have already happened in our data cloud for creating your own reports directly. This allows your own analysts to connect any BI tool, be it Tableau or Power BI or any such tool, directly to data cloud. And they can load, if you're using, let's say, data lake, for example, they can even load the entire catalog of tables from Support Logic's data cloud directly into your data lake. And again, the last option that we had mentioned before is the programmatic tokens. Programmatic tokens, again, is like a key file that you can use if you have development capability, and let's just say a capability for development pending on your end. You can use that to build your own API layers or build your own custom web applications by directly programmatically accessing Support Logic's data cloud as a database. And you won't have to worry much about it of any other issue, right? Now, these are the options with which you can consume. Now, the next step would be actually what are the complex, why do you even have to do this? All right, like why choose Support Logic Data Cloud than any other option that you might have in mind? Now, that's because there are many complex hurdles when you're trying to integrate data from multiple sources, right? This is a very common problem in the industry. Connecting data from multiple sources has always been a headache for every single engineer who works on the data platform. And it's a complex engineering nightmare involving multiple ETL pipelines, getting data from one area to another, the inconsistency of data, semantic mismatch between multiple different data sources, and so on. For example, to if you want data of a holistic view of data of your support organization, it's hard to get it from a single area, like your system of record, for example. Your CSAT might be stored in a different tool. Your sentiments might be stored in a different tool. Your summarization and GenAI capabilities might be stored in a different tool. How do you bring this all together so that you can present a unified view? Unless you see a holistic view, it will be very hard to understand where exactly this comes from. So that's where Data Cloud helps, right? Like in even our previous webinars, I think about the MCP server, which I might have pointed out that almost 95% of AI projects in companies fails. And one of the major challenges that they are facing is combining data from multiple sources, right? Again, that's again an MIT study. I'll probably share the link with this afterwards. But we solve the data inconsistency problems, we solve the semantic mismatch problems, because every single data that you can think of about your system of record, about your CSATs, about anything at all, right? Those are all brought into support logic anyway. So with this data in support logic, we'll be able to clean the data as long as we bring about a unified schema. We can completely eliminate semantic mismatches, right? So there will always be the same name and industry standardized nomenclature for every single schema, every single column that we have. And data sanity is also going to be important. If you're moving across multiple CRMs or multiple changes in your own systems of record, the data will not be clean or aligned before, right? But support logic will have that record because your complete CRM history is available to us. So our data cloud will maintain the most recent and clean data available so that you'll easily avoid discrepancies common in manual exports. And the best part about all of this is maintenance problems, right? Like how do you maintain such a large data set, for example? Now, because everything falls on support logic sent, the best part is you won't have to maintain it at all. It's like support logic will take care of the maintenance, the schema, stability, the governance, the security, and so on. Which brings us to the next complex hurdle, which is the performance and security. Now, the biggest problem when you have with larger data sets is performance, right? Like as long as and when your data scales or the performance starts degrading, right? But since we are using Snowflake dynamic tables, they are completely isolated from your operational systems so that they do not affect whatever is operational in support logic. And this is kept separate. And they can ensure high-speed querying even at massive volumes. And because it is running in Snowflake, these tables are also auto-indexed. This helps with scalability and faster query runtimes. So that if you want to, let's say, gather data only from a specific time period, index queries will always run faster. And last is security. One other common problem with integrating data from multiple sources is security, right? Like who gets access to what. So if you are having restricted data in one system, then having restricted data in two other systems. So who gets access to what will again be a problem, right? And because of having to set up same rules and protocols and security settings in three different data sources is much worse than actually setting it in a single area like Snowflake, right? Because we have support logic data cloud. It's controlled strictly via multi-factor authentication if you're a user, if you're an individual user trying to log in, or if you are a service user, or if you're using an integration level user to identify, we provide a role-based access control. And we also provide secure keys. If you're programmatically accessing it, we provide secure keys so that it ensures always GDPR remains compliant with your existing security compliances. For example, GDPR, because it's within Snowflake system itself and Support Logic's ecosystem itself, every movement is monitored by our GDPR compliance that is put in place. So you won't have to worry about security over here. Okay, now I've gone deep into the theory of it. Now will be the most, let's say, interesting topics, right? What exactly can we use this for? I told you what data cloud is. We've discussed about what complex hurdles that we are crossing. We know that this is going to be system of intelligence, but how can we actually leverage it? What is the real world impact of it? And let me start with the first use case, right? And this is a real world impact, right? Like again, large organizations often struggle to get a holistic view of their support, CSAT, or any other statistic, for example. It limits the ability for to provide customized dashboards for internal leadership even or external clients. This also limits the possibilities and expansion opportunities, like providing a customized dashboard view for customers or an internal dashboard that can minimize the dependence of leadership and, let's say, management. There are many use cases that we can have. Multiple organizations so far have leveraged Support Logic Data Cloud to build customized leaderships, so customized dashboard for leadership, or even external clients, right? Again, this could be, it becomes much more simpler when you have all data, the sentiment score, the case volume, and let's say MTTR scores, everything is easily calculable when every single data is present within Support Logic Data Cloud itself. One such example of a customer utilizing this would be NTT, right? NTT Data has built an enterprise level dashboard using Support Logic Data Cloud. And this is a testament to their commitment for moving into the system of intelligence model, right? Like they wanted to open up to their customers and showcase how exactly their scores are, what exactly is their experience or their customers' experience is like, right? And it could be an added service, it could not be an added service. That's up to everyone. But this is one of the easier use cases that anyone can target at. And it takes nothing to build, right? Because the data is already there. All you'll have to do is put up graphs with the same tables, and you already have an executive dashboard ready. Now, the second best use case is one of the common problems that we talked about earlier, right? So we often like product prioritization or engineering prioritization often defaults to the loudest voice of the customer rather than the highest risk, right? Like many decisions that could impact the prioritization of, let's say, apologies, many decisions that could impact the prioritizations of feature enhancements requested by customers stagnate at the support layer or at the product layer, right? And they don't know the importance of which specific request needs to be prioritized higher. Only if a customer shouts and it gets in, if the voice is the loudest, or if there is a risk of churn, or if there is a risk of escalation, only then certain things get into move along. This has been commonly observed, right? Single action and decision based on the data that we have at over here could actually, if you have the data at hand, for example, saying, hey, you know what, this is the customer and this is the feature that they have requested, and they're at a churn, they're at a potential churn, then there is a possibility of increasing the net retention rate by solving that problem, right? Like by bringing up the prioritization of that feature or solving a critical bug, right? Like with Data Cloud, you can actually solve this, right? You can put a number of revenue, right? For example, identify revenue at risk by correlating the sentiment data, the account health data with the revenue, right? And actually put a number on top of each and every single feature enhancement that you get or the bug that you have. You can correlate that information and then share it with your team saying, hey, you know what, prioritize this or else we'll lose so and so much money. That has more weight than randomly stating this customer wants this update, right? Like with this, we can actually shift from reactive firefighting to a proactive, let's say, prioritizing of which features that we need to add or which bugs or which of these decisions are going to directly impact the net retention rate. This is the second use case. Now, the third use case is actually performance benchmarking. Right now, most traditional metric is the mean time to resolve. I'm just using that as one example. Again, I'm not saying this is the only one. But traditional metrics like mean time to resolve actually don't account for many things like case complexity or the customer temperament or the customer sentiment, right? An agent might have high MTTR because they're handling the most frustrated customers. But simply looking at the numbers, like mean MTTR or mean time to resolve, we'll never know exactly what exactly is the cause until you deep dive into it. So simply basing it on the numbers might be punishing the good for taking the time. By merging actually the sentiment signals with agent level insights in Data Cloud, we can actually identify the outperformers or underperformers, like the outperformers being the agents who constantly turn these negative situations into positive ones. And once you have that data, you can use the pattern to upskill the entire team. Like all you'll have to do is figure out one agent who's consistently turning the negative situations into positive ones, and you'll get your result, right? But with Data Cloud, what you're doing is you'll have an added context on the agent's performance. It's not just the mean time to resolve as a number, but you'll also have the context of why exactly it is taking so much time. And it makes it easier to identify the coaching needs based on their interaction patterns. And once you implement such a scenario, you'll start seeing improved proactive monitoring, one, reduced mean time to resolve, targeted skill development across the organization and not just for your team. So this is one of the use cases. Now, the fourth use case is actually the CRM-less architecture. In one of the recent blog posts, our CEO Krishna had discussed about the support CRM tax, right? It is a burden borne by organizations, and how most of the organizations that have this support CRM tax are moving towards a CRM-less architecture. And he also actually provides a phased 12-week plan to actually implement it live. Now, the reason why this is happening is CRMs or systems of records are often too cumbersome for AI workflows. They are not suitable for it, right? And this leads to expensive DIY models for sentiment detection, intelligent routing, and so on, like anything that support logic does, right? If you want to do a DIY model of it, it becomes very cumbersome and almost often leads to too much of a high upkeep. And furthermore, if you are switching CRMs often, they also result in a massive loss of historical context and intelligence, right? And that's why many leaders now are moving towards a CRM-less architecture to avoid this support CRM tax, right? Which is basically a huge chunk of revenue that you are paying to your CRM to keep your operations running. Now, this is because support logic mirrors all your support ticketing system and the account data into a data cloud in real time. And you can leverage this data cloud as a universal data layer. If you leverage it as a universal data layer, then this becomes the primary system of record, right? Like why can't Snowflake be a primary system of record, right? If you think about it that way, then you arrive at not just a system of record, then you start understanding that it is more than that. It is a system of intelligence, right? Because this allows you to switch ticketing providers without losing years of historical sentiment, years of context. It comes up with enriched AI data. It comes with high intelligence performance options and so on, right? These are four use cases. Now, one of the most interesting use cases, if you do have Snowflake, so that's another typical use case that many people miss. But Snowflake has built a really good ecosystem with AI capabilities. Now, when Support Logic Data Cloud is deployed within your Snowflake ecosystem, it completely unlocks a new tier of intelligence capabilities, right? Like you can build agents in Snowflake and enrich them with Cortex CLA or Cortex tools and analyst over your enriched data cloud tables. And you can transition from reading or observing data into actually reasoning with it. All right. If you are a Snowflake customer or a Snowflake user, you can fully leverage the tools in the Snowflake ecosystem for automation, business intelligence, or building custom applications that actually takes a step beyond traditional data capabilities, right? If you want, one of the three major points that I've noted out here is the internal copilot, built-in intelligence pipelines, and RAG systems, right? Now, internal copilot is something that everyone is looking at right now, right? Moving away from static reports and high-level dashboards, you can deploy an internal copilot that translates natural language queries, right? Like, for example, rather than asking multiple teams to correlate data, for example, sales and accounts and your own customer success teams, why did churn rate increase in Q4? This is a single question that might need three different team members to work together to get an answer to, right? Because everyone can have context of certain accounts, but not at a holistic level. But that's where the intelligence comes into play, the system of intelligence, right? Like you can actually use a natural language query, like why did churn increase in Q4? And this will provide you an immediate business answer, right? And that's what the internal copilot is for. If you want to build intelligence pipelines, it's basically a way of saying, you know what, why did churn, rather than saying why did churn increase in Q4, you can set your own limiter, saying what if the churn rate increases by 0.5% over a quarter, then send me an alert. Or if a sentiment score average for a particular agent goes beyond a certain point, for example, 70, if the average is 70 and if it goes beyond 60, then send me an alert, right? Like these are markers that you can use to identify and build your own intelligence pipeline so that everything gets happened intelligently or autonomously, right? This is the next stage of automation, and Support Logic Data Cloud can completely empower that. And the last option that I pointed out is again RAG, right? Because Support Logic also has, let's say, case level summaries and account level summaries, scores and insights and everything enriched already. You can use that as a vector database to a certain extent, right? You can convert it and store it as a vector database and leverage that as your DB for your RAG systems. If you do have your own retrieval augmented systems, you can power it with the data cloud that we have, right? Now, I'll just go into a live demo of Snowflake Intelligence, for example. Just give me intelligence. Yeah, let me just share a live example of this. Is just a Snowflake Intelligence that I've just set up. This is within 15 minutes of my time. I was able to set this up. So if you want to ask it a question like if something like this, right? Show me top 5 agents in 2024 with best sentiment scores. You'll have to go into either multiple different systems and figure out where exactly they are lacking or what exactly they are having trouble with. But once you type it in the Snowflake Intelligence, as long as you configure the agent correctly, it's a 5-minute job. And Snowflake itself, or the Snowflake Intelligence itself, will start going into identifying which agents have done the best. And it will show you a score or a graph of what exactly is going on. And this is just based on our own data, right? And it's not just this. For example, let me show you another thing. If you want which accounts have their ticket volume reduced over the past year, right? Again, this is something that Snowflake can get it immediately. This is an example of, rather than going through multiple different teams to identify why exactly your business is growing lesser, you can rather ask it direct questions and get immediate answers, right? Again, this will keep on going next steps, and it'll give you a list of what exactly is going on. And then finally, it'll also provide you with a graph again. I'm just like not going to share it because this might have data as well, right? So with all this said, let me again share screen. With all this said, like at the end of the day, what we are doing is trying to achieve the competitive advantage in this landscape, right? Like we are trying to move from a reactive to a predictive growth pattern. And that's where Support Logic Data Cloud can help. You can create your own systems of intelligence. You can leverage that to be your continuous stream of intelligence for your enterprise's growth. Thank you.